No, it's middle of February in the garden. We've had a hot summer, had no rain at all in January. We had a hot spring at times, and yet we've only had to give supplementary watering to this garden twice since last March. It's not because the soil is particularly good, because this soil dries out very quickly. It's the fact we've chosen plants that come from countries and come from places that have hot, dry summers, and these plants are well adapted to it. We haven't used a lot of native plants because they tend to only flower in the spring, and we want this garden to flower the whole year round. So we've got plants from all those countries that have dry climates, like Chile, California, South Africa, Turkey, Greece, Afghanistan, places like that. Those salvias can be roughly divided into three groups. I mean, it's not a botanical division, but just a division of where they come from and what will grow in our climate. You have these Salvia nemorosa types, which come from southern Europe and Turkey and around that area. Then in the foreground here, you've got Salvia greggii, and that comes from the dry parts of Mexico. Then you've got others that come from more tropical areas. You've got areas like Ecuador and the mountains of Colombia and places like that. And they are used to summer rainfall, and they're not much good in a dry climate. And then you've got one which is a hybrid between one of the tropical ones and one of the tougher ones. This one here is Salvia indigo spires. I grow about 50 or 60 different sorts, and none of them disappoint me. They can't all get a spot in the garden, but they all deserve a spot in the garden. With cultivation of them, they like it pretty dry. We prefer dry to wet, most of these dry climate ones. The shrubby ones, like Salvia greggii, you just cut it back to about 30-40 centimetres each year. These herbaceous ones, herbaceous means the ones that die down to the ground, you cut right to the ground. And then these here, these become, although they're hardy enough at the roots, the frost will kill the tops, so they get cut down when the frost comes, and then we just mulch the roots and they come away again the following spring. One bulb was planted maybe 4 or 5 years ago, and so they soon increase, and they also self-sow. They'll just drop their seeds and they'll come up almost like a lawn, and then 2 or 3 years later each one of those little seedlings will flower. Next to it, and self-sowing too, is this little crocus from, well, used to be known as Yugoslavia. Now it comes from Herzegovina, Montenegro, and goes into northern Bulgaria and into southern Hungary. It's one called Crocus thomasinianus, and it's named after an Italian botanist called Tomasini, and it's the best doer of all the true crocus in the garden. One bulb planted will soon have 10, 15, 20, only 2 or 3 years. One bulb will make 3, 4, 5 extra bulbs every year. And again, they self-sow. And like a lot of winter flowers, crocus protect themselves from inclement weather by, if the sun goes in or it starts to rain, the flowers close up. And then when the sun shines, or it gets a bit warmer and drier, the flowers will open up and then they get pollinated. There's no point them risking their vital organs, so to speak, if there are no insects around. And the insects tend not to be around in cooler, wetter weather.
David Glenn, world-renowned nurseryman, and his wife, artist Chris Canning, have combined their talents to create a garden which is a showcase for dry climate plants and an inspiration for gardeners.